I've got a few of my most recent revolver purchases from Smith & Wesson laid out here on the table today. In fact, these are my 3 most recent purchases of Smith & Wesson revolvers. Well, actually, I think it's 3 of the 4 because I believe my Smith & Wesson 586 L Comp came somewhere in here, but it's on my hip loaded right now. I don't want to show a loaded gun because I don't want to give some of my more delicate viewers a panic attack or anything. So I'll just show you these 3. I think these 3 will be sufficient for what I'm showing you in this video. And what I do want to show you in this video and what I want to talk about is something I've been getting a lot of questions about lately. Now, one of the reasons I think I'm seeing a lot of revolver questions lately is because I think revolvers are having a big resurgence in popularity. Companies are making revolvers that never made revolvers before. Some tactical channels are doing revolver videos that never really did revolver videos before. People are asking me what I think about that, and I'm like, the more the merrier. I love seeing anybody do revolver videos, and I especially love seeing people finally admit that I was right all along, that revolvers are awesome. So I'm all for it. But I wanted to address that question about the canted barrel issue that Smith & Wesson had there for a while. And I say a while because I think it's been fixed. Now, being a Smith & Wesson revolver lover, I have definitely suffered from the crooked barrel issue. Crooked barrels on my guns, not any other type of crooked barrel issue. Don't believe what you hear other people say. But like I say, I've suffered from it. My Smith & Wesson 629 L Comp here had a very tilted barrel. It was not in a line with the frame. If you look at this old picture here, you can see it isn't just a little bit, it's a lot out of alignment. When I contacted Smith & Wesson, they said, well, that's within spec. And I'm like, well, then your specs suck. Now, to their credit, they did offer to replace the gun with a brand new gun, but that gun wasn't available anymore, so I had to choose a different gun. So I said, no, I'll just fix it myself because I didn't want to give up the gun. I really love this gun, even though it's a bit of a fingerprint magnet right now because I got it shined up. This is one of my favorite 44 Magnum guns. It's probably my favorite 44 Magnum. This gun has gone with me to Alaska a couple of times. Will probably go with me to Alaska this year. So I decided to keep it, fix it myself. And if you want to see the problems I had with this barrel and what I ended up having to do to fix it, I'll put a link up in the right corner to the videos on this gun so you can take a look at what I did with this gun. Now, the problem with the canted barrels came along when Smith & Wesson switched to what a lot of people call a crush or a compression style barrel, which is basically the same thing. They still screw the barrels on, but they don't use the pin anymore, so the threads have to be more precise because that crushing power of the threads locking together and holding that barrel very tightly to the front of the frame is what holds the barrel in position. The problem with this method is if you get off even a few microns when you're fitting the threads, it really shows up in the barrel alignment. I guess Smith & Wesson management was willing to look the other way and label a wider variation of straightness acceptable just so they could save a couple of dollars per gun because that way their technicians didn't have to spend as much time being precise. And you ended up with that crooked barrel like I showed you in the picture before. So that was a real problem for me. I almost stopped buying Smith & Wesson revolvers. Unless, of course, they were older guns like this one because they used a screw-in barrel. The barrel screwed in to a certain point where it was perfectly straight, and then they pinned it in place. So this I liked a lot better. I like the old method. But like I say, this is an outdated manufacturing method. Pretty much no one uses it anymore. You can see the little pin right there. If you ever wonder if you have a pinned barrel, it's pretty easy to see. You can see the pin right there. But like I said, outdated method, not really available anymore. So if you want a new revolver, you're pretty much going to get a compression fit barrel. Well, like I said, for a long time, I would not buy a Smith & Wesson revolver unless I could look at it first. I had to be able to inspect it first and make sure that barrel was properly aligned with this little part right here in the frame. That's how you really tell. Run a straight line down this and see if it lines up with the grooves on the barrel. As you can see, this one is perfect. This one is great. This is one of my new guns. It came out great. There was nothing wrong with this one. It was perfect from the factory. Same thing with this one, my 45 ACP. Now, I ordered this one in sight unseen, and once again, perfectly straight. Every gun I've bought recently is perfectly straight, including my 586. All of them seem to be coming in just fine. In fact, if you look at my most recent one here, perfectly straight. And it's hard to tell on camera from the angles, but perfectly straight. This gun is awesome. So for people that ask me, is this still an issue? I really don't think it is. I can't say for certain, but all the most recent guns I've bought do not have the issue. I think the market worked here. People like me and you, we said, I'm not buying a Smith & Wesson revolver anymore until they fix this problem. I don't care if they say this is within spec. To me, this is not acceptable, therefore I'm not going to buy it. And when enough people started doing that, and it started being all over the internet, I think Smith & Wesson said, hey, it doesn't do any good to save a couple dollars per gun by not aligning the barrels properly if we can't sell the gun afterwards. So I think they've fixed the issue. Now, if you want my actual advice on buying a revolver, I'd say, well, you can't go wrong if you choose an older revolver from Smith & Wesson. Just make sure it's in great shape, and I think you'll be getting the best for your money. These old revolvers are awesome. They're usually quite a bit cheaper than newer revolvers. You can find them pretty much everywhere because Smith & Wesson's been around for a long time and they're a big selling brand. So if you can find an older gun, get an older gun. They are great, and especially great for what you pay for them. But if you want a newer Smith & Wesson, and I can't blame you if you do, because to be honest, I think the new guns are every bit as good as the old guns. They're not quite the same because manufacturing has changed, but they're still awesome guns. And if you look at how much the price has gone up on them compared to inflation, the new manufacturing really has kept the prices from skyrocketing. So I'm going to have to say the new guns are just as good as the old guns. They're just a little different. As long as you check first to make sure that barrel is properly aligned, I don't think you'll have a problem. Like I said, I don't think it's an issue anymore, but I would still check first. If I order a gun in before I take possession of it, I would check and make sure that barrel is properly aligned. But for now, I think the whole twisted barrel issue with Smith & Wesson is a thing of the past.